Okay. All right, I'll call the April meeting of the St. John Waterworks to order. Could you please take roll?
Bill Manasopoulos.
Present.
Nick Furtek.
Present.
Ken Gambala.
Present.
Wayne Pondinas.
Present.
Joe Wizawati.
Present.
Okay, approval of the minutes. We have two to approve. We'll take them one at a time. We have the minutes of March 15th. Are there any corrections or additions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from March 15th as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. We also have the minutes of the March 21st meeting. Any corrections or additions? If not, a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the March 21st meetings as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. We have an old business item on a revised Waterworks agenda, which there'll be no action on, however, just to discuss. And that's the senior citizen consideration Senate of a senior citizen discount. Bill, you brought that up. You want to take the floor?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask for this just to be tabled for this month's meeting. I'm still collecting some more information and should be ready by next month's meeting.
Would please put a record to have that on your next month's agenda? Okay, we don't need a motion, do we? Okay. We'll just table it and put it on next month's.
You need a motion to table it?
No, we'll just table it. Just real quick, on the bid opening, are we going to do the bid opening?
Yeah, I'll take this is old business.
Okay.
Hold on. We're still on the old business.
Gotcha.
Okay, I guess it's new business. We did just discuss it last month to go out for bids. It's under new business. Do we have any other old business? No? Wayne? No? Okay. All right, then new business. All right, we have an opening for contract 2022 water main replacement projects.
Thank you,
Town
Mr. President.
Manager, you want to handle that?
Yeah, we have one bidder submitted by Dyer Construction Company. Now go ahead and get that open. This was received by the Clerk Treasurer's Office. So the option A, which is the base bid plus the bid alternative A, has a total of $2,113,555.03. The option B, which is the base bid plus the bid alternative B, is for $2,044,528.35. Again, that was for the option A is $2,113,555.03, and option B is $2,044,528.35.
Okay. And that's what company was it?
That was with Dyer Construction Company,
Construction.
Inc. Yeah. That's all the bids that we did receive.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to take under advisement to have a legal review and also to have the town engineer check that all the items are included in the bid. Then we may have to have a special meeting then if that's, they clear that in the time before our next meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to submit the bid to legal and to the town engineer for review.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, motion carried. You want to take care of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then let us know if, when that takes place and if we have to call a special meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other new business? What do you want to take the Baker Tilly under? New business or just project updates?
It's your pleasure.
Okay, well, let's go to the other item of new business, and that's a consider sanitary agreement for 8501 Jacobson Drive. Before you should have correspondence information concerning, it's a residence.
Mr. Chairman, this is for the sanitary, this is for the next.
Oh, just
next
the
meeting.
sanitary?
Yes.
Okay, no water.
Correct.
sanitary.
Just water.
They're
Yeah.
just going to tie a future tap on sanitary. Okay.
You're being very efficient.
All right. If there's no other new business, reports and correspondence.
We do have the discussion for Baker Tilly on the agenda under new.
Okay. You want to
Is that a microphone on?
take the,
Evening. My name's Eric Walsh. I'm a partner with Baker Tilly. Wayne and Beth had asked me to come tonight and go through some year-end financial updates for both of the boards. So going through Water Board first. Each of you, I believe, has in front of you. It's not on. There we go. Presentation dated April 8th, 2022. What I'd like to do tonight is spend maybe 15, 20 minutes and just go through the high points of the board. I think Jason has it also online. We'll be following along, so I'll try to call out page numbers as we go. Keep it informal. If there's something you have a question about, just please interrupt me and ask that. So I'm going to start on page 2 of the report, if you'll flip to that. See, Wayne, you're already there. This is a snapshot historically of your cash position and fund balance position. So this would be cash and investments the last 3 years at year end. What you'll notice is a steady increase from 2019 to 2020, then a large jump in 2021. Probably no surprise to you all, that's the $8.4 million bond as those proceeds came in. Some of it was spent in 2021, but obviously the lion's share was held over at the end of the year. If you'll skip then to the next page on page 3, the chart at the top shows your receipts and disbursement spending for the last 3 years in a graphical form. So the left-hand column for each year is the receipt side, right-hand column is disbursements, and then we've color-coded these so you can see some variations in both your revenues and expenditures. So on the left-hand side in receipts, the lighter green, larger portion of the picture is your operating receipts. So that's primarily metered sales, penalties, etc. The lighter blue that's stacked on top of that, then that's what we call non-operating receipts. So that's things like your tap charges, system development charges, new home building, et cetera, as they pay those fees as they connect. What you'll notice is that's steadily been increasing the last 3 years. It is a pretty large portion of your revenue base. That's something we've talked about every year when I've been here, of obviously a fast-growing community, one of the 10 fastest-growing communities in the state of Indiana. You rely pretty heavily on those charges. But in future years, as we forecast out, and in each one of these reports, we always do a 5-year forecast, we try to be a little bit conservative there and rely a little bit less on those. Economic downturn, full build out, less land, et cetera. There could be any number of reasons why those fees could eventually come down in the future. And we don't want to be stuck relying on them then not have that revenue source to really provide the 3 main buckets of cost that both of your utilities have, but in water as well, which is operation and maintenance. That's the darker green in the right-hand columns. Debt service payments. We were just talking about the debt, or you guys were just approving a bid that was part of that debt. And then third is other capital. So when I talk about capital outside of the bond supported capital, I'm talking ongoing maintenance type capital, repairs, infrastructure investment in your system. At the bottom of page 3, then this is just a snapshot of really where do you spend your operational money. You'll see about 30%, and it's been growing, but about 30% in 2021 is your source of supply. So that's where you guys get your water source from. And then you can see the other ones. Your other large one is customer accounts. That's really most of your billing related, has stuff to do with what you're doing out in the field, so on and so forth, related to operating your water utility. The next slide, page 4, I think this is a nice snapshot of many times water boards, councils will ask, okay, how do we know if we're in good financial shape? Because you can say we have this much money in the bank, but how do I know if that's a good position to be in? What this slide shows you is in each graph, the last 3 years, the amount of funds that the water utility had, and then we've color-coded the different funds within the utility that those dollars sit within. The reason that's important is because some funds, like your meter deposit fund, for example, that's really meter deposits paid by your constituents, by your users, that you hold in reserve to pay back and future disconnect, et cetera. So you really can't spend that money. Other funds like your operation and maintenance fund, there's minimum reserve requirements and promises that you made bondholders. For example, in that one, it's 2 months of operating costs that you'll hold as a minimum in that fund, and so on and so forth for each one of these. The gold line or the yellow line in the middle of the page, that shows those minimum reserves or recommended reserves. So you can see in 2021, you're about $12.7 million, and your minimum level, your recommended level is a little bit under $10 million. So you have a buffer of almost $3 million that you're looking at above those minimum recommended reserves. The next several slides are more getting into the number crunching piece of it or the details. So I'll walk through these fairly briefly. Again, feel free to ask questions. Table 5, though, on page 5, this is a breakdown of your 2021 receipts. As I talked about earlier, you really have two segments of receipts, your operation and maintenance, your operating receipts, which are your metered revenues primarily, which you brought in about $2.8 million. That was almost right on budget. You're about 1.4% above what we estimated. But then what we call below the line, the non-operating receipts, those are things like your interest income, your tap fees, system development charges. You see the bond proceeds coming in, et cetera. That's where you really outperform budget. You're about 10% above what we estimated. That was primarily driven by higher tap fees and system development fees than what was estimated. Again, we try to be conservative on those estimates year to year as we go forward. While we're still on the receipts side, I'll go to page 6. I think something very important for the management boards to understand is where do your revenues primarily come from? So we've targeted here your top 5 customers, and you can see at the top, table 5.1, it shows the last 3 years of revenues. The school corporation being your largest customer, they've ranged anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 on an annual basis in revenue. You can see you do have a new large user, the Crew Car Wash, coming in 2021, generated over $15,000, and then you can go on down the line. Table 5-2 shows you that in the context of your entire revenue source, though, for the town on the water utility. Your 5 largest users make up less than 3% of your revenue base. That is extremely low density or concentration for a large user base. Not surprising, probably to you all being a residential community, that you have much more variation in terms of you don't have one user that's generating 15, 20, 30. I work with some communities that's close to 50% in 1 or 2 users. So that helps you guys withstand kind of economic downturns, et cetera, as well, having that residential customer base as your platform. Table 6, which is on page 7, this is your operating disbursements compared to budget. Again, left-hand side is your 2021 actual. The middle column is your budget. You can see in total within 0.4% of the budget. Coming that close to a budget of $2.5 million is somewhat unlikely, but very good budgeting and staying on track with spending. You can see some categories had more spending than others, but overall it was offset by reducing in other categories. Then the bottom of page 7 just shows your debt service payments. Those are known, fixed, and measurable going forward as long as your debt is outstanding. And then finally on page 8, we'll wrap up 2021. This shows your capital spending. In the left-hand column, you spent about $1.2 million. The budget had about $8.4 million. The primary variance in that, why that's such a large variance, is we were assuming that more of the bond proceeds were going to get spent last year. Not an issue that it's taken longer, that you've taken your time, et cetera, with bids going forward. That just means you're moving that spending really from 2021 to 2022, and you'll see that on the forecasted pages. But that's primarily why, and I alluded to that in the very first slide, why you saw that big jump in cash. Obviously, you brought $8.4 million in, and you only spent a small portion of that. You're going to see the exact opposite effect in 2022, where you're spending all those bond proceeds. You're going to come back down to a more level cash balance. You'll flip to page 9. Now I'll get into the forecast. It's the same types of tables we just went through. I'm just extrapolating from your 2021 actual numbers, which is in the left-hand column, and we're going out 5 years and forecasting out revenue, on this page, revenues. So you can see your metered sales growing each of the next 5 years. The big jump in 2022, that's primarily your rate adjustment that was adopted about this time last year. So you haven't had a full year at the higher rates that were enacted. You'll get the full benefit of that in 2022. And then also with a growing community, we build in some customer growth going forward for the town. You'll notice on the bottom line, though, if you look at, again, those big lines like tap fees and system development charges, what are labeled SDCs, we've been much more conservative on these. You can see us dropping those down considerably from 2021. Again, that's just being conservative and saying, okay, if we really have an off year or growth comes to more of a slower pace than it's been historically, can we still maintain our cash reserves? Because really for a utility, which is what we call an enterprise fund in fund accounting, is really ran like a business. It's user fees, you're selling your commodity or your resource, bringing those user fees in, then operating it as a business. You don't rely on tax dollars to operate. The other piece I'll draw your attention to on this revenue side is 4 lines from the bottom. You'll see that temporary loan repayment. As you probably recall, last year, water loan to sewer, $2.5 million. That was a long-standing issue that had been going on for years. We just got that corrected in the books and had the legal documents done correctly. We had that as a 5-year payout, $500,000 per year coming back into the water utility. The first payment was made in 2021, and you'll have 4 more years of that $500,000 coming back from sewer or sanitary. The reason I want to highlight that is because obviously that's not a recurring revenue you can count on as you get past 2025. So just keep in mind your revenues are $500,000 higher each year than really what you're generating. It's just a repayment of a loan. Page 10, we go into the operational side then. These are your expenses. Same thing. We extrapolate out from your current year spending. We anticipate customer growth in these as well as inflationary increases. In today's inflationary environment, if you'd go back to the reports we did last year, even the year before, your historical increases in spending, taking customer growth driven factors out of it, was really less than 2%. Right now, we're estimating, even though inflation is historically high, over 6%, probably on average over this 5-year period, you'll come back more to the higher end of historical inflation, which is in that low 3% range, which is what we're using to build this out. Your debt payments then are on table 12. You're paying about $680,000 per year on your outstanding debt. And then finally, on page 11 at the top, table 13, this is your outstanding or your anticipated capital spending. You'll notice in 2022, obviously a big number, $7.8 million. That's spending down those bond proceeds. That's why that's so large. It's part of what you just took bids for tonight, as well as a few other projects yet to be done. The other years then are more normal annual type capital expenditures. And on page 17 of this report, you can see the detail behind each of those numbers. It actually breaks down your plan line by line. I think the table 14 on the bottom of page 11 is pretty nice to see. Again, it takes your revenues in green on the left-hand side of each year, your expenditures in the blue. The darker blue is your operation and maintenance. So think of that as your daily expenditures. That's salaries, wages, chemicals, repairs, maintenance, etc. The gray stacked on top of that is your debt service payment. Remember, it's about $680,000, $690,000 per year. And then the light kind of aqua green color, that is your normal capital expenditures anticipated the next few years. So after you get through 2022, where you have a large decrease in your cash spending or in your cash balances because you're going to spend down that construction fund, that's where you're holding those bond proceeds, you start to see in 23 through 26, we actually estimate you'll have some slight positive cash flows each of those years. And I think that's illustrated pretty nicely on the next page. This shows your fund balances in total. And the aqua color is your actuals. So you started at this year at about $12.7 million in 2021. We anticipate that'll drop down to about $6.2 million next year as you spend your bond proceeds, then gradually increase each of the next 4 years after that. The darker green line below that, that is that minimum kind of reserve balance that I talked about earlier. That's really the floor we would want to see you at. I really don't want to see you get close to it, but that kind of gives you a level to measure to and manage to. Obviously, you have a nice gap getting formed there. That's partly due to the growth you're experiencing, but also with the rate adjustment that was adopted last year. And ultimately, what that means is it's more flexibility within the utility. Not only flexibility for future growth if things continue, but flexibility as capital improvement needs come up outside of this project. We talked about that last year when I was here several times talking about the rates and the bonds. Many of you and many on the council had questions. We're a growing community. We have aged infrastructure. Do we have money built in here for things we're not anticipating now within our utilities? This kind of shows you where that money is. So you can do additional projects that come up the next 5 years that maybe were unanticipated. Okay. And then finally on page 13, because a question I'm sure all of you get regularly is, okay, how do the rates of St. John compare to others? Every 2 to 3 years, we do a comparison and a survey across the state to all of our clients. We work with many from northern to southern Indiana. We do it by population size, because what you would obviously see is the larger communities, larger populations are spreading more of their fixed cost over more of a population, so they typically have lower rates. So we try to keep you in population kind of brackets when we compare you. St. John falls in the 15,000 to 25,000 population. And if you look at the left-hand column, for an average residential customer in the state of Indiana determines an average residential customer has 4,000 gallons usage a month. Now, in a community like this where you have somewhat larger homes, probably a little bit larger families, you're probably higher than that, but I try to keep it by state average, what's defined, so it's an apples-to-apples comparison from community to community. But based on that state average, the St. John water bill only would be about $17 per month. The sewer bill would be about $25. So again, this doesn't have trash or any of the other services on it. But that 4,000 gallon a month customer would be paying $42 a month. Now, I know there's people that are going to say, well, my bill's 70 or my bill's 110. That's because they're using more water. This is based on 4,000 gallons. I then compare you to 19 communities of similar size in the state of Indiana. You can see the average for them is about $22 for water, $30 for sewer, or $52. So you're about $10 below that average. Now, when I did these reports back at the beginning of April, we hadn't finished our updated survey. We just got that done this week. We actually did a 2022 updated survey. These numbers are about 2.5 years old that you're looking at here, but if you want to write into your books, the 2022 averages now for water for the state is $28.65. So from 2019 to 2022, the average water bill for communities of similar size, these 19 communities, went up 30%. So you're not alone in the town of St. John of people doing projects, having rate adjustments, et cetera, over this last 3 years. And then the sewer bill is $31.88 on average in the new study. So that takes the state average in total water and sewer to $60.53. So you're about $18 below the state average for similar size communities. The rest of the report really is supplemental information. It has things like your outstanding debt. You have 2 debts outstanding, a 2017 bond and a 2021 bond. And I think the other probably pertinent piece of information you may want to look at in a little more detail is page 17. This outlines the detail behind those capital spending numbers that I went through in summary. So you can see you've got some things outside of the project in your list, things like the tower painting, just regular maintenance, some potential new well drilling, just an annual allowance if those things are needed, treatment plant maintenance, and then you obviously have the 2021 project cost, which we anticipate all of that will be spent this year. If there is any left over, that could be spent then in future projects in future years. I know I went through that pretty fast. These reports, we sent them to Beth, I think, last week. Hopefully she got them out to you, or if this is the first time you're seeing them. We try to write these, a lot of graphical information, but also have a narrative that I didn't go through for each one of the graphs. It just gives you a brief summary of what you're seeing in those pages. We try to make these so anybody can sit down, read through them in about 10 to 15 minutes tops, and it's easily digestible to really understand the health of the utility. So if you take time and do that and you come up with questions after I'm not here, just get them to Wayne, get them to Beth. I'm happy to get any answers back to you as well. Any questions for me?
I think it was quite thorough.
Good. All right.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for doing a good job, as usual.
Left on our 2017 bond.
If you go to page 14, I think it is. Yeah. Go to page 14. This actually shows you the remaining repayment schedule on that. You have about 1.6 million. Well, you would have made that payment already. You have 1.3 million left as of today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the agenda. Project updates, how's our SCADA water side?
SCADA water side, it's just about up and running for the water side. They've got a couple more things to do. Then they're gonna take about 2-3 weeks to tweak it, see what's going on. But that's just about done. A lot of the old panels are off the walls. I was in the water tower and the gates, that's all set up. They're taking down some of the old piping now and old antenna wires and stuff, so that's been taken down. Everything is, give them a couple more weeks and it should be up and running on its own. Then they got to tweak it. If they find there's a problem or anything like that, they'll take care of that. Then they'll start on the sanitary side. And as you know, the water main, the projects came in, the bids, so we only had one bid. So the guys took that under advisement. And I don't know if
One thing that,
Scott is here to put any input on anything.
one thing we emphasized, I think, at the last meeting is that obviously you've got one bidder, and that's availability of material before we start the project, that they'll have everything they need or close to it. You know, but we don't want to inconvenience, 85th is not very wide, you know, that we don't want to start tearing the road up like we have out here, and we don't have material, so that's one thing to look at.
Scott Cookter with Haas and Associates. We did hear from prospective contractors that they're very busy. We wanted to complete this, obviously, as we just discussed, there's a number of bond projects coming. We got to get this started. So we set a completion deadline for October, end of the season. There's a number of sidewalks. It ends up being concrete and asphalt in this project, so we got to get that done before the freeze. So we're kind of bound by that timeline, and unfortunately we only got the one bid. So we'll review it. It's not out of the question in terms of compared to the estimates, and we'll get into that in the coming days about how the board wants to proceed with that. But we'll take it under advisement, and we'll also discuss, of course, as part of our standard procedure, talk to Dyer about some of their numbers, go through it, see if there's anything that seems high to us, or if there's anything that can be reduced or scope change if they see anything in the process. There could be some cost savings, but we'll go forward. We'll take it under advisement with you guys. And
Scott, what was the estimate on that?
we're at 1.6 ballpark for, without getting into pennies, but 1.6, right around that for alternate A or B. It was a little bit more for alternate A, in line with Dyer's. We expected alternate A to be more expensive, and Dyer came in as such. So.
Yeah, we're all finished with town-wise on 41, right? There's nothing else that we have to worry about. Yeah, I know.
For water main projects, the US 41, the east side 12-inch relocation is still a pending project. I had sent via email within the last month an update from Army Corps. We did receive that today. I'll forward it to the board. They did agree with our wetland delineation, jurisdictional determination. That will be one of the pending projects we'll begin to spend the rest of the bond money, in addition to wells 8 and 9. So those are the design projects we're going to get going on next. In terms of other 41, were you referencing utility conflicts or something specific in terms of the water projects? The west side is also an additional part of the process, as we discussed previously, is to get some of these bid unit prices back. Again, as we just heard, inflationary period, busy time for people. So we'll see where these numbers come in and what effect that has on projections for future projects due to spending the bond money. So we'll go on to the next one. Presuming, of course, we award this or however the board proceeds with this one.
Okay.
Are we gonna have to move a lot of water main on the west side or replace?
West side of 41?
When they came across with this year, then they came on an angle, and there was, Milestone said something that they might get it resolved, and we might have to do. There not be no conflict.
Are you referring to the St. John ditch crossing?
Yeah.
Box culvert?
Right.
I do not know the status of that. The last correspondence I had with the state was through Milestone, where I just clarified some things about the existing 1978 plans that we had sent.
Yeah.
I don't have a status update on that.
Okay. We might.
Mike, Baltimore, Bob Davis probably
Okay.
certainly has.
All right.
I just don't have that.
Any questions for the town engineer?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I guess we'll move to payment of the bills, if there's nothing else. Find the last page. Here we go. 2 pages. All right, we have the water utility for April 19th. Total of $358,624.94. Any questions on that? If not,
Nothing.
motion.
I'd like to make a motion to pay the water utility dock as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. And we have the docket for the Water District for April 19th, $21,398.21. Any questions, or?
I'd like to make a motion to pay the water district docket as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Public comment for the Water District. Hearing none, if there's no further business, adjournment.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye.